Nate from Frontier Coffee. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you doing? Thanks for
Doing
having.
well, brother. Doing well. It's dude, you're a welcomed break from a lot of the wokeness that infects social media these days. I feel like common sense is being murdered at an alarming rate, and it's just like, dude, we have to be able to say things that are true and rational, and your posts call a lot of stupid shit out. So today, my man, I want to dig into your experience, not only in the military, but you know pivoting into this world of entrepreneurship and creating something from the ground up. It's not easy. It's not fucking easy, and you are doing it.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. For anyone listening that doesn't know, I own Frontier Coffee Company, and like Denny said, we as a company are very outspoken on our social media accounts and in our email newsletter, which you should sign up for. It's pretty funny. Um, yeah, we're very outspoken politically and socially about the things that we believe to be good and true, and things that we hope will save our nation, or the soul of our nation.
Yeah.
Um, Stuff that we've witnessed, especially over the past, it seems 10 years or so, has just been, perversion on a mass scale. And um, it's ideological perversion, it's religious perversion, it's perversion against children. And too many people have gone along with it because they were afraid of cancel culture. I don't know how much of that is still, plaguing at people's fears with the new administration in there. But yeah, too many people have kowtowed to the woke mafia, to the rainbow mafia, to the LGBTQIA, whatever mafia Gestapo that is, and like they've always, I think that they've always tried to shelter their businesses. Um, by like, putting up their celebration flags, whether that's some sort of celebration month or a celebration for sexuality or ideology. And they've tried to shelter their businesses by like going along and supporting everything. And some of this
Yeah.
stuff is it's just evil and wrong and shouldn't be supported. Um, so when our business didn't start off politically or socially motivated or really have any bias besides my wife and I wanted to sell coffee. Like that was the
Yeah.
motor there. But eventually there was this breaking point of like, perversion needs to stop. And whatever little platform we had at the time, it's like, okay, we're going to use this little platform to speak out against it. And like, why should a business like ours that wants to speak out for what we believe in be canceled any more than, Target or putting trans flags up there? Like, cancel culture goes both ways. So, um, they came
Yeah.
after us super hard. Actually, I called my friend John Burke the first time the lefties came after us. Excuse me. And I was like, "Hey, man, uh, the Young Turks are doing a smear piece on me. Are you familiar with the Young Turks?"
Very loosely. I try not to give any of my attention to dipshits, and I
It
know enough about them that they're, yeah, dipshits.
it's essentially an autistic communist organization.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so the Young Turks are coming after us this back in 2023. So I called John Burke and was like, "Hey, what do I do? They're doxing me. Like, they found out where my kid goes to school. They're calling my
What the
wife's private
fuck?
number. They're posting pictures of my teenager online. Like, they were going bonkers." But he's like, "Well, you got three options. One, you can apologize to those faggots." He's like, well, that's not going to happen. Uh, so let's take that option off the table. What else do you suggest, John? So you can go radio silent, see what happens after a few weeks. You're not going to gain anything, not gonna lose anything. You'll just kind of be dead in the water wherever you were before. Or you can just dive in. Like, you already took the blows. You might as well jump in the ring and keep on fucking swinging. So that's what we
Yeah.
did. And it's came with a little bit of growing pains, a little bit of standing on edge for a month as they were doxing us, but eventually we came out on top. And our brand is well defined as, I think, one of the stronger conservative companies out there right now.
Yeah. It's sad to hear that whenever you talk or have a counterpoint, they want to attack you, and everything's open to them. And it's ridiculous to think that if you would have tried doing the same thing, if you would have shared information about their kids, or their loved ones, you would have been drugged through the mud even more.
Yeah, well,
And
I'm not a fucking psycho, so I'm not gonna dox people's kids.
yeah.
So,
And that's a sad reality that we're living in. But I think it's being washed away, hopefully. But this grooming, this constant attempt to try to create, because they can't manufacture their own followers, they have to take them from normal families, and they try to inject their ideology into our children. That's really at the root of it, that really bothers me. Like, you can't just leave kids alone. You have to continue pushing the envelope, and it's all throughout media. And it has to, we have to be more vocal about it. I shouldn't turn on the TV and watch this shit on Disney. I shouldn't have to watch it on Hulu. Um, to me, it's ridiculous that we're even talking about this. We're labeled extremists.
absolutely. And like you said, they can't reproduce, so they do have to groom, they have to recruit. And that's what they've been doing really heavily for the past 10 years or so, at least. And excuse me, especially on like, okay, so we have this whole alphabet mafia, LGBTQIA2 plus. I think there's an S in there somewhere.
Yeah,
I honestly don't know what all of them mean, but essentially the L's and the G's, I think should have just like pushed all the other letters out. Like, you
yeah,
know what? Women who want to love other women, men who want to love other men. You guys won that battle back in the 90s and early 2000s. You guys won. But
yeah.
Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIB mic was always screaming this back in the 80s and 90s. Like, it's a slippery slope, and they won't stop there. And I'm like, however anyone wants to take this, this isn't a lesbian, gay bashing thing. This is just like, unfortunately for that group of people, they opened the doors and allowed a complete freak show of depravity and perversion in there. It's not love is love anymore. It's
No,
grown men wearing thongs, wearing dresses, dangling their units in front of children, trying to normalize that sort of behavior to children because obviously it's not normal, but the earlier that they can start doing that to kids, the more normal it seems as they grow up.
normalize the behavior.
Yeah.
We've seen it over and over again, and it's. I think that one of the big pieces is there was no longer a need for all these organizations that were created to continue fighting for equal rights. So what happens when you built this system that requires fundraisers and people to open up their coffers and donate more money? Well, you're going to create and manufacture a problem.
Yeah.
You know, transgender ideology is, I mean, we're not saying that in people with mental health issues where they had issues understanding who they were and what they identify with, that's been around, but it was a very small subsect of our population, very, very small. It wasn't this grand group, and it still isn't. Now, this is a mental health issue, but you put it out there and you parade it and you make it seem like it's part of a counterculture, and they're warriors, they're need to be supported. And it's like, wait a second, man. Like, and we're seeing it now. The movement of people that are trying to detransition is sad, remarkably sad. I mean, it's all these young men and women that have been sold this lie.
Yeah. I think part of the push is, I mean, obviously there's the perverse ideology that needs to recruit in order to keep its ideology alive. But, you know, I call it the next great awakening, um, has been people realizing that doctors and pharma are not on their side. Like, there's always been
Yeah.
and ironically, like, it's always been the left who's been like, big pharma, big money, blah, blah, blah. But, like, now the lefties seem to love, all the pharmaceutical companies. But these doctors and these, drug companies have never been a friend to any of the people that they're supposed to be serving. So once they realize that, okay, we can get kids hooked on SSRIs, we can get them hooked on Adderall, we can get them hooked on, whatever other things that they've already figured out that they can have them on every single drug under the sun to cure their anxiety, to cure their depression, to cure their hyperactivity. Well, then they realized, eventually these kids might grow out of these drugs. They might become
Yeah.
young men and women and be like, you know what? I probably don't need to be taking 15 milligrams of Adderall twice a day. I could just focus on my job like a fucking adult. But once these doctors and pharmaceutical companies realized that they could start lopping parts off and do hormone blockers and, like, pretend to play God with people's sexuality or their gender, they they have them hooked for life. These kids going into young adults, they can never get off of this stuff. Once you've undergone the surgery, once you've undergone these types of hormone blockers or hormone adapters, you're stuck. I mean, they've got a client for life.
For
There's
life.
yeah, there's nothing about this quote unquote gender affirming care that is about saving lives. It is only about keeping a gravy train going.
Yeah. And then the sad reality is when you talk about any other mental health condition, if I go see my provider today and talk about PTSD, talk about flashbacks, talk about nightmares, and talk about my delusions of always being in danger and always having to assess threat, they're not going to align with that view. They're not going to allow me to continue living that lie that I'm always going to be in danger. No, they're not. They're going to help me and give me tools and walk me down a logical path of thinking into understanding like, hey, you're not always going to be a threat. We have to understand that that's a big lie. You go read the oh gosh, one of those days,
DSM.
DSM-5, and there's nothing in there that says, yes, absolutely agree with your patient when he's dealing with PTSD or any sort of mental delusion. It doesn't say that.
Well, I mean, I think you're lucky if you have a provider that is, if that's a scenario that you've gone through where you've had those sorts of, those delusions, those ideas. If you have a provider that's actually looking to help you heal, help you move on, help you, you know, get past that and fix the root problem, that's great. I don't think that's the no-halt provider. I really don't.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, there's some great ones out there, but you're right. A lot of them are still under the guise of let's just put you on another medication.
yeah, well, I mean, look at how many guys we know that are now like in this perpetual toilet bowl of the VA medical system.
Yeah.
They are literally they're prescribing 43-year-old guys like 20 different drugs that they're perpetually on, and half of the drugs are only to counteract the symptoms of the previous drugs that they put them on.
Yep.
Like, what they're doing is absolutely asinine, and, I know you were an SF guy too. Were you a Delta?
No, it was Bravo and then warrant officer.
Awesome. Well, back when I went through the Delta course, 2005-ish, 5 and 6, like, I shit you not, the solution to 70% of the problems was drink water, get rest. Like, I it I firmly believe that still.
Yeah.
COVID, drink water, get rest. You got the flu, drink water, get rest. Like, literally 70% of the shit is going to get better if we just hydrate and be healthy. It is
Yep.
not, it's not vaccinating stuff to ad nauseum. It's not taking SSRIs on top of SSRIs. Like, that cycle needs to be broken. We've got a damaged healthcare system that wants people to be on this, and specifically veterans. Like, the VA system perpetually encourages these guys who, spent 20, 30 years getting beat up, going through some traumatic experiences. But they turn them into perpetual victims for the rest of their
Yeah.
lives. And I don't think that's the solution. Like,
Yeah, that's one thing that I want to touch in on is it's why is it that we've allowed ourselves to take on that comforting blanket of being a disgruntled veteran and being a broken veteran? Like that is such a hard thing to combat and talk against. Like guys don't seem to understand like the importance of like take power of your healing, take power of your journey, and don't just settle for being in your room, in your home, locked away, watching Netflix.
dude, it's
Just
it's one of my biggest pet peeves in the veteran world. These guys that do their time, whether that's 4 years, 20 years, 40 years, I don't care. These guys that do their time and then they get out, they get their retirement, they get their VA disability, and then they just play, like you said, they play disgruntled, dysfunctional veteran.
yeah,
Like, so what you're telling me is that you spent X amount of years in the military, you made it to whatever rank you made it to. Up until that day that you got out, you were going to PT, you were going to the gym, you were going to the free shop, the op shop, your ODA, whatever your job was. Maybe you were the supply guy, maybe you were the cook. But up till the day that you got out, you're telling me that you were going to PT, going to work, and performing nonstop, and then all of a sudden you're just like you just stop functioning and you're this perpetual victim? Fuck
yeah,
that. I think it's absolute bullshit, and I think it's ridiculous that so many other veterans, like, perpetuate that existence on each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still in the Guard right now.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I'm I'm still in the Guard, but
I could tell you used to be an 18 Delta.
yeah. So my medical records don't reflect anything because I was the Delta, so I only wrote other people's record. Uh, like I do not, I do not want to rely on the VA. I mean, I don't rely on the VA. Like
Yeah.
I don't. I get I have 20% disability from when I left active duty the first time, all the way back in 2010. So what that means, I think my check is like $230 a month or something from the VA. If I don't go to drill, basically anytime that I play National Guard stuff, I don't get VA check, or they keep paying me and then I have to pay them all the money back at the end of the
Oh,
year. Um, but like when I look at this, I'm like, I'm 40 years old, relatively healthy. Why would I why would I just want to like kick my feet up and let the government take care of me? Why would I not go like I want to go out there and build my empire and I want okay, maybe when I get out finally, like when I finally pull the
yeah.
plug and I'm done with the Guard service and all that stuff, maybe I'll put a VA pack. But that's not like that is not my plan for retirement is just connecting or I'm sorry, collecting a VA paycheck and
Yeah.
some dipshit prorated National Guard paycheck. Like that's quitting. You might as well quit. I just don't get it, and the mentality drives me up a wall.
Yeah. It's hard to sell the idea that you can't just magically develop grit and resilience. You have to do hard things. You have to challenge yourself. Like if you're dealing with mental health issues, just sitting in a protective bubble, listening to the same voices on BetterHelp aren't going to solve the issues. They're not. You have to take the tools you're given and put them to work, and you have to get out there and do things and fall down and stumble. But we're getting this idea that we have to stay in this protective cage, and it's like, dude, that's not reality. You can't just sit down after you get out. You have to go do something.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't care what it is that guys do as long as they do something, like, whatever, go get a job at the gas station, at least get out of the house and, like,
Yeah.
do something, interact with humanity. Um, the entrepreneurial route isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, there's gotta be at least 3 days a week. We're 7 plus years into this project, and there's 3 days a week where I'm like, "Man, I wish I worked for somebody else." Every single week.
Shit, that doesn't go away.
Yeah, it does not go away. Like, you know, I think the entrepreneurial endeavor is not for all veterans. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think that the entrepreneurial, like, the idea of it holds a lot of allure for veterans. They've seen Black Rifle, they've seen Grunt Style, they've seen Nine Line, they've seen whatever, Matt Best and JT's funny videos. Uh, do you know how hard it is to make that lightning strike twice? Like,
Yeah.
there's a s there's a small group of veteran entrepreneurs who nailed it, and then the rest of us are just grinding away, like, just grinding away, and it's tedious. There is no big green welfare machine that's gonna come in and pay your bills. They're not gonna you don't get 30 days of leave when you're an entrepreneur not collecting that big green welfare machine paycheck. You're there every day. Excuse me. Um, and I think that's a tough one for a lot of guys that leave active duty is that comfort level.
Yeah.
Which could be why some of them, don't try to their full potential. Of fear, they were used to being successful in uniform. They knew that they had the financial stability. They had the, healthcare. They had retirement points building up. Like they had all of the stability in active duty. And maybe they're like they could have been the best soldier ever in their unit or in their base, whatever. But I think that fear of failure on the outside world probably does stifle a lot of guys and lead to that, just being stuck in that dysfunctional veteran rut.
Yeah. That fear crushes a lot of hopes and dreams and deters a lot of guys from going after what they really want. And it's being able to share stories. Maybe it's not your individual path, but highlighting every single story that I can find, giving guys the option. Because that's one thing that I realized. Nobody's out there showing what they're doing, or at least putting it out there saying like, "Hey, I did this, I went to college, I went to MBA program, this is what I'm doing now," or "Hey, I went agriculture, I never thought I'd be a farmer." Just understand that there's a second chapter out there for you. Being a Green Beret, being a soldier in 82nd, that was just a stepping stone. It doesn't have to be the end of your ability to achieve greatness. Like
Right.
there's tons of things we can do.
But one of the things that veterans do have on their side, if they're willing to take those risks and go out there and, build their own, or even try to build their own company,
Yeah,
you do have, if you're retired, you do have that retirement check to fall back on. You do have that VA check to fall back on. Again, I think that being your plan for retirement or, post-military income is a pretty crappy plan. But that's a padding that most people don't have when they go try to start a
exactly.
business.
Yeah.
They
How
hold
did you take that approach, man, when it came time to lay down the foundation for Frontier Coffee?
um so when my wife and I were initially starting the company, we had no illusions of this becoming a commercial roastery or online company or any of the other projects that we're doing now. We started it even before we had gotten married. We discussed opening a coffee shop, thinking, goodness, uh, we had this idea of opening a coffee shop, thinking it'll be a laid back way to work together, make a living, work for ourselves. For the most part, set our own hours. Yeah, you have to be early
Yeah.
mornings for coffee shop, but we can also be closed by 1 o'clock or two.
Yep.
Um, So we had, I don't know, $25,000 saved up for a down payment on a house back in 2017. And instead of buying a house, we bought a dilapidated coffee shop up in Washington State, um, refurbished it, reopened it, and that's where we kind of kickstarted it. It was, I don't know, a 10 by 12 drive-through shed. So yeah, that's where it started. It's in Paulsville, Washington. Um, we were doing our own roasting because we got quotes from a couple other local roasters. It's getting really expensive. So we bought these little, they roasted a quarter pound at a time. They were like, I don't know, 8 inches tall or so. They look like a little air popcorn maker. So we had two or three of those things lined up on the windowsill in this coffee shop shed, just roasting our own coffee a quarter pound at a time. Um, so yeah, that was our start. We spent, every single cent of our down payment on starting this little business. And throughout the next couple of years, we moved to Sandpoint, Idaho for a failed partnership with a much larger company.
Hmm.
Then I went back on active duty down in California at Fort Hunter Liggett. Well, when we moved to Idaho, we sold the coffee stand, but we kept our roasting equipment. And we had upgraded a little bit of the equipment by
Yeah.
then. So we kept the roasting side, kept our brand name, and we were just kind of figuring out what to do with it. Um, yeah, I went back on active duty in California in late 2018, I think. And throughout the summer of 2019, our company really started taking off in coastal California. We had contracts to do like event coffee, so
Oh, hell
triathlons up
yeah.
and down the coast, marathons, big wine festivals, the state fair. We'd go out there for a weekend, sell coffee to all the marathoners, all the triathletes, and it was good money. We were doing our own roasting and selling, maybe 20 orders a month online at the time, but the event coffee was where it was at. So
Nice.
we had a strong summer season in 2019, and then I started lining up contracts for 2020. Malibu Triathlon, Santa Barbara Triathlon. I had every contract for Ironman triathlons, basically from San Diego all the way up to Washington State.
Damn.
Uh, so I went and talked to my boss at Fort Hunter Liggett. I was like, "Hey, my company's taking off. I'd kind of like to go back to a part-time ODA and just do the National Guard thing and focus on this entrepreneurial endeavor." Um, so 19th Group took me back out there in Utah. I was still living in California, but got reassigned to ODA
Yeah.
in Utah. Um, yeah, we had our contracts lined up for 2020. I was like, "This is it, man. We're gonna kick ass." So left my full-time active duty job, left my retirement, left my TRICARE, all that fun stuff that you get on active duty. And then obviously March of 2020 rolled around, like 3
Yeah.
phone calls came in. within the first 3 phone calls, it was like 150 or $200,000 worth of contracts just all canceled. It's like, "Oh,
Ugh.
no." Um, s so, yeah, that was March of 2020 out in California. I mean, I left active duty, lost all our contracts. We were online coffee sales was not really a thing. Well, not
Yeah.
for us anyways. Like I said, we had the website turned on, but a couple dozen orders a month might trickle through. That was it. Um, yeah, we couldn't get jobs at gas stations. I couldn't get a job as a grocery store bagger. Couldn't get a job at Home Depot because like everything was shut down. Um, and I remember in California at the beginning of COVID, um, the state legislator had passed this emergency bill, or maybe it was a executive order in the state. Basically, if you didn't pay your rent, your landlord couldn't kick you out. The banks were still collecting mortgage from the landlords, but
Yeah.
so my wife and I were renting this, this little house at the time from a family, and we're like, we're not going to not pay our rent to this family. Like this is beyond
Yeah.
fucked up. That's some liberal shit right there. Um, you know, fucking over somebody else for your own gain.
Yeah.
Uh, so we, you know, again, no jobs, couldn't get a job anywhere. So we had a payment plan with this family so that we could keep a roof over our head and not screw them over at the same time while we tried to figure it all out. And basically, I got really lucky. Uh, Maybe April or May 2020. The active duty medical NCOIC that was supposed to be coming from Germany to Salt Lake to be the NCOIC at Salt Lake MEPS station, for whatever reason, couldn't make it from Germany
Oh.
because of COVID, everything.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Hey, Nate, if you want, you can ride out the rest of the fiscal year being the NCOIC for the med section at MEPS in Salt Lake." Um, so I went back on active duty again out at Salt Lake, left my family out there in California. Um, and that was an absolute blessing, to be able to have that opportunity, to go back on.
Yeah.
My wife and kid were still sitting out in California. We had to vacate our roastery because we couldn't afford the rent on it anymore. So we packed up
Yeah.
packed up all the roasting equipment, packaging equipment, and put it in my friend's barn out in California. And again, absolute blessing and great friends that I've made over the years. The guys that own Park City Coffee Roastery up in Park City, Utah, allowed me to use their roastery while I was working out of Utah. So I'd do all day
Wow.
at MEPS, drive all the way up to Park City from Salt Lake, go into their roastery, get whatever I needed packaged and mailed out to our few customers, and kind of started focusing on trying to sell more stuff online during that time since we didn't really have any other
Yeah.
options. Um, yeah, that went for about 6 months, and we just kinda put a finger on the map. We're like, "All right, Texas is open, Idaho's open, Tennessee is open. Let's go to Tennessee. We're gonna get the most bang for our buck." And, we were able
Yes.
to amazingly afford. We had, like, $5,000 to put down on the house, but through a VA loan and everything, we were actually able to afford a house out in Tennessee with a detached warehouse on it where we were able to
Hell
move
yes.
Frontier Coffee and, really just kinda threw gas on it from there. Um, Ton of sweat equity and, you know, grinding away until that thing turned over and started producing something. Um, yeah, since we've moved to Tennessee and plugged in here and kinda finally turned Frontier into both of our full-time jobs, it's turned over and it's very much both of our full-time jobs. We've got a couple of people on staff, full-time salary guys, and it's chugging away, slowly rebuilding the American dream.
Dude, I was just gonna say, man, you're doing it. That like the scaling part, that's the hard part. That so many people when they get into the entrepreneurial route, they're like, fuck, when can I
Well, it's
bring somebody on
it's it's
to
real
help
it's
with some of this
really tough
shit?
to figure out, what exactly do you
Yeah.
need? What can you afford? And you can never afford what you need. Like, you look at, okay, we have
Yeah.
wholesale operation, we have white label operation, we have third-party logistics operation, obviously our own roasting and direct customer on the website and everything. Where do you find that person that's like, hey, I know fulfillment, I know roasting, I know distribution? Luckily, we actually did find a guy eventually, but um, it's really tough when you're a company that is scaling, is growing, and has so much potential on the table to find the right person to fill that spot, uh, and hopefully be able to afford it as a company. The next thing
Yeah.
that we're always still running into, um, as we grow, we need bigger equipment. We need a whole new K-cup manufacturing line because the current one can't keep up with demand. It is,
That's a
it
good
is.
problem to have.
Um, but when you look at manufacturing lines and stuff like that, you're like, okay, this thing's going to cost us $250,000. Last year, the website did $250,000. We do wholesaling and custom labeling and distribution for other companies as well. But like when you look at those numbers, you're like, okay, in order to I see the goal. I see what we can do. I have to take out another mortgage to get there. And that's what a lot
Yeah.
of people don't understand about that entrepreneurial thing. Like, okay, it's fun. You kind of make your own schedule. You get to brand it the way you want. You get to build it the way you want. But eventually, there comes a time when you're just like, I've gotten this far, but I have to go so far into debt to keep the momentum that I have. Uh, And I've seen
Yeah.
it with a lot of companies, specifically in the veteran entrepreneurial space, guys that take on equity partners, take on, you know, working working partners, take on capital, but a lot of times they end up with golden handcuffs on them. And like it doesn't stay the company that they started or that they envision. So right
Yep.
now, my wife Jen and I still hold the reins to everything Frontier, uh, in- including all the debt.
That's perfect.
But hey, it's my
But
debt,
hey, it's yours.
all my debt. The other big kick in the nuts recently is I d so coffee's a commodity. It's ever fluctuating, and it has to be imported.
Yeah.
So we have overseas, we have imports, and we have fluctuating commodities market. Well, the past 2 years, the excuse me, coffee market has increased by roughly 200% in the last 2 years. So
Ooh.
that's my raw cost of goods. The past 6 months has been especially bad. There was a harvest loss in Brazil. There was about 11 million bag shortage from Brazil. So when you have that big of a crop loss from one country, obviously the supply and demand, goes through the roof for all of the other countries. Like the past 6 months was
Yeah.
really starting to kick us in the nuts. Like every day I look at the C market, ugh, it's a new high every single day. Not a new high. Like, yeah, not a new high
Record
for me being
high.
in the business, a literal record new high every single day. And then, since Big Daddy T came back in office, um,
Yeah.
it has continued reaching new highs every single day at an alarming rate. Uh, and I think that's, the tariff threats have been announced, but I think it's market volatility just based off fear. Uh, so hopefully that
Yeah.
stabilizes. But in the meantime, like that's the business that we're in, where we locked ourselves into this commodity. And ultimately, for a 12-ounce bag of coffee, a 1-pound bag of coffee, no matter what the market does, there's only so much that we can put on a price tag where people will still buy it. Um,
Yeah.
if I could, I'd change the website to just have like a little market price on it, just like steak and lobster. But I don't know that the market.
I don't know if that strategy is going to work, Nate. I'm not a
I
coffee
don't
guy.
know
I
that the
don't know
market's
the
going to
ins and
support
outs,
that.
but
Congratulations! Today your coffee's $10. Tomorrow it might be 30.
you could take a page out of the places like Seattle where they're like, hey, what would you like to pay? We recommend you pay
Right?
this much.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resources out there for learning business. Did you participate in any programs or take advantage of any veteran entrepreneur programs that helped you kind of figure it out? Or did you dive in head first and just figure it out on your
So
own?
I've always been entrepreneurial. Um, I ran a pretty large triathlon and endurance coaching business before we got into the pop thing.
Oh
Um,
shit.
but really, no, I didn't do any of the veteran entrepreneur programs. I don't have an MBA. I'm kind of a knuckle dragging moron. Uh, I don't have
You
an
don't have an
MBA. I can't
MBA?
believe it. So pretty much once Frontier fails, I'm destitute. Like,
Well, I mean, there's
there's
always
there's
money in
always
the
money in
meat
the
game.
banana stand. Some people will get that. Really, the like the crash course in where we are now in the veteran space and the online space came from Black Rifle. Honestly, um, Evan Hafer and I were on the same ODA back in the day. I was the first
Oh no shit.
operations director of operations guy or whatever the title was back at Black Rifle in 2016, 15 or 16. Um, and I had already been doing our coaching company and, you know, contracting and other kind of entrepreneurial stuff. But that was my kind of first crash course in like, oh, this is a whole new scale of entrepreneurship and, you know,
Yeah.
just managing a different level of entrepreneurship than a stable of athletes. So yeah, I would credit the initial crash course to Evan Hafer. I guess.
Shout out to Evan.
I don't know if
He's
it's a
got the
shout out.
blueprint.
We're not talking right now, but he does deserve credit where credit's due.
We're not on speaking terms.
Well,
We'll edit that in
I don't know.
post.
Somebody's gonna come out. It's been done before. Like, oh, they're just trying to be Black Rifle Jr. Like, nah, I don't really give a shit what those dudes do. They, my wife and I had wanted to start a coffee shop you know, before I ever had the opportunity to
Yeah.
work with Evan. That's what we did. Here's what it is today. I'm 7 or 8 years removed from Black Rifle, but that was my crash course.
Yeah. It's funny that we have this veteran echo chamber that everybody
Hell yeah.
shits on everybody. I'm like, dude, we've been drinking fucking coffee for fucking
No,
eons now.
nobody is better
Like,
at killing veteran spirit than veterans.
dude, I oh man. The Instagram inbox, boy, let me tell you, it is a fun place. You want to go
I
on a
bet you get a
downward
lot of good
spiral.
ones. You guys got a pretty strong meme game on there as well.
Dude, man, I wish there was a team, but this is this
Well,
is
so
everything. It's all sides of the operation. It started out well. It started out with three of us that we're doing it as a hobby, but the reality is when you are fucking headstrong, passionate about something, I didn't want to go work for somebody else. I didn't. I I had ways to make money for myself and support this, and then I started getting paid to produce other shows. And what I quickly realized was no one's going to believe in
yeah,
your dream
yeah,
more than you. And you can love your friends, like still they're dear friends, talk to them every fucking single day and still connected. But this is my fucking dream. If I want this to really fucking grow, I have to figure out how to fucking do it. And as much as you want to sit there and hope and pray that somebody sees value in what you're doing, they're not going to see it unless you're fucking crushing it and killing yourself to fucking
yeah.
make it
And
happen.
again, that kind of circles back to where we started the conversation with veterans just being this
Yeah.
dysfunctional, disgruntled vet. Like a lot of them will start some
Yeah.
project, whether it's podcast, whether it's t-shirt company, whether it's coffee company, and they'll get 2 months into it and be like, "Well, it it didn't take off like XYZ podcast. I'm not
Yeah.
the next Joe Rogan. I'm not the next Black Rifle," and they'll hang it up that quickly. Like
Yeah.
I've got a really good buddy of mine. Uh, he's followed the growth of Frontier. He's been friends with me since I was doing coaching and triathlon thing. Like his phrase is always overnight, and it's going to be an overnight success 10 years in the making. I'm like that's where it is. People are like, whoa,
Yeah.
Security Halt podcast. Have you been following this? Some people are going, yeah, man, I've been following it for 12 years. Others, but then like
Yeah.
it might take that long. whatever the time frame is, eventually you start getting the momentum of people like, I just discovered this new thing. It's not a new thing, man. That dude's been
Yeah.
grinding for a long time.
But there's been a lot of fucking just grinding, but you figure out like you were saying, man, like one door closes,
Yeah.
another one's going to open.
As long as you're
You've got
looking
to
for the
just
open
keep
door,
working. Like,
if you just
yeah,
guys will just let them close in their face and then they'll go sit back down on the couch.
yeah. Dude, life is going to kick you in the dick sometimes. It happened to us on teams. You didn't get the school you wanted. Teams starting to yell at you because you fucked something up. Like every day is not going to be the
Be
fucking
willing to
best
get
day of
back
your
up
life.
the
You
next
got
day
to
and
be
go
willing to
after
get
it.
back up the next
You
day and
really
go
love
after it. If you really love it, if you really want to do this, you're going to be there at 4 a.m. putting out memes about poop and cum. Like, that's what it takes. That's
It's kind of
what it
funny.
takes.
Like you mentioned the meme thing. Well,
Yeah.
I had to clean the 50 cal the entire deployment in Iraq because of an ND. So my team started yelling at me a whole lot for that one, and then gave me a present for it. It was when the Crows system
Oh,
came out. You
man.
know, the joystick thing in the back of the truck. So
Yeah.
you had to have you had to have
Yep.
like some little lever switched up, a thumb on a button. If you're moving and you want to stabilize the thing, you had to have certain combo of things
Yeah.
squeezed so that the stabilizer's on. So I've got the stabilizer going, we're
Yeah.
bouncing through the desert, and then like we hit this big bump. My finger goes in and just like clack clack. He's like, "What the fuck are you shooting at?" I'm like, I don't know. I was a brand new X-Ray E5, like just got to the team a month and
Oh,
a half before we
shit.
deployed, and within the first month, I'm just blasting 50 cals for no reason. Anyways, uh, yeah, you're gonna get your dick kicked in no matter where you go, whether it's on a team, whether it's
Yeah.
entrepreneurial, whether it's in a relationship. You just gotta get up and keep going. Like brush it off.
Yeah.
Don't let it put you down in the dirt. Um, yeah. So Frontier Coffee has 2 Instagram pages. We have the Frontier Coffee Company, which is the shit post page, and then we have
Yeah.
Real Frontier Coffee, which posts like wholesome Americana coffee stuff. Anytime that we actually post about coffee on Frontier Coffee Company, everyone's like, "Boo, you suck." Seriously, guys? Like, I don't think I honestly think that most of the people following that page don't know that we're actually a coffee company.
So,
I
yeah.
I
Yeah.
do not think that they
Yeah.
know that. I think they're just like they I think they think the
Yeah.
page took this name, but I don't think that they think it's a real company.
Yeah. It's funny, man. Like I'll post something about like what truly means to be a good, real good operator, a real good Green Beret, real good like professional soldier, what we should really focus on. And I'll get a fucking inbox of like, yo, you need people with no standards. That's what makes great. You're a fucking piece of shit. Fuck you. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, like what the fuck? The amount of irrational hate that gets sent through social media, it's like fuck, but then you make a meme making fun of that same thing and people are like, oh, I fucking love
This
it.
guy
It's like,
must be the
oh God,
best
dude, like
operator in the world. He made something funny on the internet. I think it's funny how many, how many messages we get, whether it's on the social media or our actual inbox. Like, I want to become a Green Beret. What do you recommend for this, this, and this? I'm like,
yeah,
there was a time when I could help you. I am so far removed from that. I I I can't. I am not an operator anymore. I was never an operator. I was a good 18 Delta. I was a good guy on a team, but I was never a cool guy.
yeah,
You know, as
yeah.
you got the Crip teams or shift teams, whatever they call them now. You've got all the Tim Kennedys of the world. You've got the B23, B2
Don't say
guys.
his
Like
name. He'll
you've
pop
got
up.
legitimately cool things going on out there. I was just a Delta
Yeah,
on a ruck team and a Halo team. Like unremarkable deployments, but I think that's okay.
it's 100% okay. It's we have to kill the myth that every deployment is Mogadishu, that every deployment is lone survivor. It's not. That's not the reality. We weren't in World War II. It doesn't mean that your service didn't matter. It doesn't mean that your deployments didn't matter. You contributed to the GWAT, one of the largest and longest fucking military fucking wars. Like that's the reality of it. You should be fucking 100% proud of whatever the fuck you did. Whoever you are, if you serve in that time frame, I want to hear your story.
Did
I
we
think you're
win?
remarkable. But we've
Did we win?
overflated. What's that? We can't say that we won. Maybe winning was just the friends we made.
Uh,
Maybe that's
no,
winning.
I agree. Like,
Like,
and I was a big support hugger, especially once I left active duty. I was a full troop dude, but like once I left
yeah,
active duty and went to 19th Troop, and really once I worked in the 3 shop at 19th Troop, I was a full-time 2 ops guy.
yeah,
Um, and I saw all the moving pieces and like how whatever fourth, what do they call 4th Battalion? The
yeah.
GSB.
GSB.
Like once I really saw
Yeah,
the assets GSB had, once I got to meet kids and the guys over there, and like, okay, there's not an ODA that could, yes, we could function in country. Like we would never get anywhere without having a strong GSB. And I promise
absolutely.
you, I would way
The
rather have the GSB riggers pack my chute than myself. I trust those kids way
yeah,
more doing it
it,
than I do my own chute packing. Like,
yeah. I've seen an entire battalion run because of one E5 fucking Barson. Every time you walk down there as a Green Beret, you should be shaking those hands and thanking those kids, those guys, those young men and women that make it so that you can go on your JSIT, your CDIT to continue in doing your job. Because as much as you think they don't matter, they truly do. And we're better for going into those parts of the battalion that you never get to and sit down and
yeah,
just understand what they
like,
do. Yeah, they may not be able to ruck 15 miles. They may not be able to shoot as well as you, but I tell you what, if you
yeah,
trained them, they could. If you took them to do some PT with you, they could. But we don't do that as much. We don't bring them out. Like I know some teams do. That's one thing I will say. I've seen some teams reach across and bring a lot of those guys, the support guys, on to do PT, to go do stuff, to build that rapport. Because if you're there for your career and you're gonna see these people, you're gonna see them make rank. They're gonna be there for a long time. Just not all of them, but a mass majority will stay there and they'll continue to support you, and you will get to know them, and you'll realize that a good
yeah.
soldier is a
And
good
it pays
soldier,
to be
and they're
friends with
everywhere.
the first sergeants over at GSB.
Oh
Yeah,
fuck yeah.
I was definitely a support hugger. Really, once I got to the 3 shop at group and saw the moving pieces, I had a
Yeah,
couple really awesome opportunities throughout my career. It was actually on the guard side, but on full time guard
yeah,
status. So one of them, I was the NCOIC at uh, there's the Special Operations Recruiting Detachment, the Sword. That was super
yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I did that for about a year, and the Special Operations Recruiting Detachment, basically, like, I got to go all over active duty bases, go to the RCCC, the Reserve Career Component Counselor. So, uh, that's basically the retention guy that every active duty person has to go through when they're leaving active duty. So, like, all of the SF guys that were getting off active duty, I would go through during their ACAP process and be like, "Hey, you've got all these qualifications, you're an E6 or E7, whatever rank it was. Uh, you can come over to help us out at 19th Group." So that was kind of cool. But also throughout that process, I was at the REC company, the Readiness Enhancement Company at 19th Group for a while. And that's where we ran the SFREs, or the Special Forces Readiness Evaluations. So it's basically like our little 4-day
yeah,
in-house selection. Um, so I got to run those for a while. And that was super cool seeing there was a ton of our own support kids that wanted to come through. So, like, getting to put them through that
yeah,
in-house selection process to really, like, guide them after that. Like, if they did it all great, we're gonna
yeah.
mentor you until you go to the Q course. If you didn't do so well, but you've got the heart to do this, like, I will help you. And I was coaching and racing triathlon at the time. So, like, I'll help you get where you need to be. And there's probably at least a dozen guys that I know personally that, they were E3s, E4s that are now Green Berets that I, helped them get through all
Fuck
of the
yeah.
pre-selection stuff, and, you know, was able to provide that mentorship along the way. Um, Another super cool opportunity that I got, uh, was I got to be the senior military instructor out at Brigham Young University's ROTC program. Semester
Oh, no
semester and a half,
shit.
I guess. Um, so it was actually 2017 when my wife went up to Washington to start the company while I was teaching. Um, and
Nice.
at first, when they offered me the job, I was like, I don't know. I really don't know if I want to babysit these college kids. I don't know. Um, but I kind of reluctantly took it, and then I was my goodness, I was the senior military instructor, so that's like the NCOIC of the program, and basically
Yep.
you're teaching small unit tactics to the juniors and seniors. Um, it's like working out of their like level 10 and Ranger Handbook, uh, and I absolutely loved it. It was so much stinking fun, and what was really awesome about doing it at Brigham Young, I was the resident center. I'm not a Mormon, so I show up with a big dip and a cup of coffee every morning, yelling at these kids. And they absolutely loved it because, like, they were so used to every single person being part of their church and just, like,
Yeah.
they had
Yeah.
this super gentle program, and then I was like, "Yeah, you guys are about to be fucking officers. We're changing some shit." But, like, there was no babysitting there because 1, the Mormon kids don't
Yep.
go out and drink and party. The Mormon juniors and seniors, they've already spent, like, a year at the mission academy, whatever they call that thing, like, 2 years on a mission. So these kids are coming back as juniors and seniors at, like, 23 years old. So I've got young adults that are actually ready and wanting to become military
Yep.
officers. It's like no one's showing up hungover, no one's showing up late. It was a super cool opportunity, and, it's like, "All right, this actually has value being an ROTC
Yep.
instructor that actually is going to hold these kids to a standard, is going to push them really hard and make them hopefully a a valuable asset as an officer when they graduate and go off to whatever unit that is." Um, so it was a super cool experience, and however we got to there, support huggers, I don't know, like, it was super cool, and, you have the
Yeah.
junior ROTC officer that shows up at your unit, and you're just like, "Ugh, this kid sucks." Like, I really hope that at least some of the kids that I helped graduate from that program don't suck. And I still talk to quite a few of them, like 7 years ago. So,
Oh,
like,
no
I
shit.
still every now and then, guys will ask me for a letter of recommendation or just call to check in, tell me that they got to a new unit. So that was neat. I
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good experience, man, and more people need to take
broad
advantage of it. It's out there. If you're an enlisted guy, don't
uh,
don't look
the
down on it.
broadening
Maybe
assignments
take a
are
shot.
important. Like, as much as we wanna be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, an ODA is the only place I ever wanna be," like, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. It's super cool. An
Yeah.
ODA is the best place that you will be in the military, but to shirk other experiences, to not take advantage of something that might turn out to be a great experience for you and make you a much better team sergeant down the road, you know? Whether that's
Exactly.
learning a different type of leadership style, figuring out, "Hey, I'm going to lead a bunch of these ROTC kids that don't know their ass from their elbow." Like, that will make you a better leader when you go back to your team. Or if it's, like, going up to the 3 shop, going out I was a division safety officer for a reserve training division for a year. Like, why? I don't know, but administratively, I learned a lot of stuff, being at a division level.
Yeah.
So, stuff that you'll never get
Yeah.
on an ODA.
No, the broadening assignments are truly needed, and I especially if you didn't have that formal like growing up in the infantry or in a conventional unit and you never saw that, you got to take advantage of every resource, man. Like, don't just think that your experience on the team is going to be it. Be willing to like take on a challenge in a different arena. Nate, if we want to get some of your
You guys
coffee,
can
where do
check
we
out
go?
frontiercoffee.com and, we'll do a discount code security halt for 20% off your first order. So
There we go.
frontiercoffee.com.
We'll drop it down in the
Yeah,
episode description.
frontiercoffee.com and use code securityhalt.
I like that. That's perfect. And if we want some great memes and some great entertainment on social media, where do we go?
So you can go to Frontier Coffee Company on Instagram for whole dumpster fire of dirty shit. Uh, if you want to tune in for the real life version of it, you can find us, look up Boldly Patriotic. That's our little in-house podcast that we've been doing for a couple months now. So Boldly Patriotic will bring the real life shitstorm to your ears.
Hell yeah. And that will also be an episode description. Nate, I can't thank you enough for being here today. Even though you're sick, making the mission happen. Truly grateful for you being willing to stand up and voice the truth because we need more people. Now it's the time for us to just be firm, stand tall, talk about faith, talk about values, talk about what it means to be a good man, a good father, a good husband. And don't let people tell you that it's not needed because you
Hell yeah.
absolutely need it. You don't have to be negative. You don't have to attack anybody. Just boldly be yourself and talk about how great it is to be a
Dude,
great
being a
patriotic
great
American.
patriotic dad is the best gift I've ever had. It's awesome. And every man should
Yeah.
strive to do it.
It's absolutely, absolutely, man. I can't say that enough. And you heard it from Nate himself. So if you're sitting on the sidelines and you're wondering if it's worth it, yeah, being a husband, being a father is
Yeah, man, go get a girl
it's
pregnant and
pretty
start your own
rad.
business. You'll love it.
Hell yeah. Thank y'all for
All right.
tuning in. We'll see y'all
Thanks, Jenny.
next time. Till then, take care.